The first thing to say is that he is not for sale. David Moyes said in April 2022 when asked about the prospect of Declan Rice leaving West Ham United. If you're interested, well, £100 million was cheap last summer. 150 just now would be minimum, but he's not for sale. So, £150 million for Declan Rice. Well, that sounds like a lot of money. So Tifo dug in to take a look at what his actual value might be. As we all know, the answer to what a player is worth is whatever another club is willing to pay. If Declan Rice were to leave West Ham, he would have a different value depending on which team was interested in signing him, determined by an aggregate of their relative positional needs and their resources. When he departs is also important. As of 2022, Rice has 2 years left on a contract that's due to run until 2024, but with West Ham holding the option to extend it for another 12 months. At the moment then, contract length isn't a factor, and yet it could become so. In other words, time will tell. In addition to which, Moyes' quoted figure of 150 million is quite understandably intended to deter interested parties. We know that of course, but that's no fun. So what is his market value as an estimate in the calm days before the transfer window opens again? First of all, for context, if a club were to pay £150 million for Declan Rice, it would make him the second most expensive player of all time. It would still be some way short of the £199 million that PSG paid to activate Neymar's Barcelona release clause, but it would be a bigger fee than those commanded by Kylian Mbappe, Ousmane Dembele, João Felix or Philippe Coutinho. It's not very realistic. In addition to which, the current list of the most expensive transfers completed is hopelessly skewed towards attacking players, and of course most often goal scorers. Among the top 25, for instance, only 4, Harry Maguire, Virgil van Dijk, Lucas Hernandez and Matthias de Ligt are central defenders, and only 2, Frenkie de Jong and Paul Pogba are midfielders who don't produce category-leading numbers of goals or assists. Nevertheless, that provides a rough range of value. Manchester United paid £94.5 million for Paul Pogba in 2016, while Frenkie de Jong left Ajax for Barcelona for £77.4 million in the summer of 2019. And there are some other factors to consider. While that Pogba valuation is now 6 years old, it was inflated by the player's commercial worth and by Manchester United's intention to use him at the forefront of their marketing activity. Declan Rice would not be an equivalent asset. Frenkie de Jong was not a commercial asset either, but he was very young when he moved, just 22, and he'd enjoyed a highly successful season in the Champions League, reaching the semi-finals with Ajax. The fee Barcelona paid was a recognition of both the player he was, the one he was likely to develop into, and to a lesser extent, but in a way that made such a big fee politically easier, what he represented. The relationship between Ajax and Barcelona and the Cruyffian ideals which guide the club meant that in de Jong, Barca were really purchasing a strand of original DNA. Declan Rice's value isn't as abstract. He is still just 23 though, and like de Jong, the theory of what he might become helps inflate his value. And it's important to note the difference between the player that he is for his country and the role he plays for his club. England's Rice is more static and more conservative. West Ham's Rice has a more talismanic quality, and a more dynamic orchestrating one. According to FBref.com, he's one of the 4 most progressive carriers from midfield in the game. His 6.9 progressive carries per 90 is good enough for the 96th percentile. Manchester City's Bernardo Silva tops that list. And his 2.57 carries into the final third per 90 also place him in the 96th percentile of a list led by Chelsea's Mateo Kovacic. In addition to which, Rice is also in the 90th percentile or above for crosses into the penalty area, medium and short-range passing accuracy, interceptions and percentage of passes successfully received, with the latter an interesting way of roughly measuring availability in a deep midfielder. From the perspective of influence and breadth of abilities, if not personality and profile, it's not unreasonable then to value Declan Rice close to that de Jong-Pogba range. The CIES Football Observatory currently prices him between £58 and £74 million, while Transfermarkt.co.uk estimates his market value at £67.5 million. So to create a margin for error, let's call that 60 to 80 million, with the actual price determined by a combination of the following. Which club wants to sign him? With the expectation that an English club would pay a British player premium. How many clubs want to sign him would also be important. While the fabled auction between big sides tends really to favour what the player could earn, it couldn't hurt West Ham, were several sides of similar means to chase him. An understated influence might also be West Ham's ability to negotiate a large transfer. The current ownership's record sale was the £26 million that took Dimitri Payet to Marseille, and this is the first time in a generation that the club has produced a player of such reputation. Adapting to big club economics will be a factor. And that works the other way too. Elite clubs don't have equal abilities in the market, despite their comparable resources, and negotiating abilities vary from club to club. Naturally, West Ham's own negotiating position will also be a determining factor. The season could yet finish with a Europa League win and a qualification for the Champions League. Failing that, league finish and resulting continental revenue will determine just how much they're able to dig their heels in, or how effective they are at convincing the player that he can realise his ambition without moving. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.